that's that's kind of over the hill, he's going to continue to shine. So I'm proud of him. I'm not really upset.
Apparently psychologically blind to the fact that this fight comes with it the high possibility of irreversible physical and neurological damage that will follow him for the rest of his life.
There for Jake Paul. And you know what, yeah? When we speak about like the sparring stories before the fight, I just thought, nah, they're talking shit. Hold my hands up. I had it wrong. Lawrence Okoli weren't talking shit. I'm sure Jake Paul did win a round or...
Finally breaking his silence, Floyd Mayweather weighed in on Jake Paul's bout with Anthony Joshua, applauding AJ while clowning Jake for clearly struggling inside the ropes. Still, Mayweather insisted Jake earns respect for trying, arguing that result aside, he's boosting the sport and dragging fresh attention back to boxing worldwide conversation.
It's good for what he's doing. But once he fights a real fighter, it's going to be bad.
Have you been impressed?
But one thing I like about him, one thing I do like about him, he's selling it. He's selling it, and he's making good money.
Derek Van Schaik, a sports psychologist, warned that the punishment Jake Paul absorbed against Anthony Joshua may cause long-term harm to his brain and body. He explained that when a fighter's mind and body have never felt that level of force, the brain simply cannot process it, potentially creating damage that lasts. Although many assume fighters take headshots constantly without consequences, Van Schaik stressed the boxers who never fully recover are seldom visible because their battles with memory loss, mood changes, chronic pain, and cognitive decline usually stay hidden. Seasoned boxers slowly build defensive skills, timing, and head movement across years, helping them soften blows and reduce impact. However, Jake lacks that elite experience, meaning punches from someone like AJ are far more likely to land cleanly and at maximum power. Van Schaik added the human brain was never built to endure such high-level impacts, and repeated exposure without strong defense can cause permanent or delayed injuries, underscoring the real danger Jake faced inside the fight that night alone. Life.
Fighters get punched in the head all the time and they seem to be fine. That's only because you don't usually see the fighters who never recover, where their symptoms show up years later, where they may quietly suffer with memory problems, mood swings, chronic pain, or reduced cognitive ability, but never seek help and often don't publicize those struggles to the media. Also, experienced fighters rarely take multiple clean shots from a very large and skilled heavyweight opponent like AJ. They have many years of defensive skill, timing, and head movement experience and reflex training that allows them to roll with the punches and deflect them just enough to reduce that full potential force. Do you believe this? It's mostly a myth that fighters can condition themselves through repeated fights to simply not get hurt. However, they become much better at rolling with the punches, with defensive techniques, bracing for impact, and taking the pain.
Yes, I believe it.
Jake does not have that level of experience, and certainly not at the elite heavyweight level, so punches from someone like AJ are more likely to land cleanly with full direct power. These types of punches are not comparable to anything Jake has experienced, and the human brain is not built to withstand that level of force.
Boxing's a dangerous game. Your brain isn't supposed to rattle around in your head, particularly the way...
Joey Knight delivered a fair but brutally honest breakdown of Jake Paul's showing against Anthony Joshua. He admitted that eating a clean right hand from AJ is worlds apart from casual sparring and noted that Jake beating the count actually mattered. Knight compared it to other fighters who took that same shot and never got back up, implying survival was at least a tiny win for Jake. He also confessed he was wrong to dismiss earlier sparring rumors and conceded that Jake may have briefly held his own against legit heavyweights in flashes. Still, Knight made it clear the bigger picture shouldn't be twisted. He explained that fighters usually box to the level they're facing and that Joshua adjusted without issue. Despite a handful of flashy clips Jake can repost, Knight stressed Jake landed almost nothing overall. In his eyes, the bout was mostly Jake avoiding danger and running instead of genuinely competing. And history doesn't deserve to be rewritten any other way.
For anything like that, but you can go over. People can't question you too much, but fuck me. It's not like taking a big old punishing right hand from AJ. And speaking of the right hand that AJ gave to Jake Paul, listen, Jake Paul was up at the 10 count. I see AJ give that same right hand to Robert Hellenius, and he was out for the count, and he was juicing. So that's a win there for Jake Paul. And do you know what, yeah? When we speak about like the sparring stories before the fight, I just thought, they're talking shit. Hold my hands up. I had it wrong. Lawrence Okoli weren't talking shit. I'm sure Jake Paul did win a round or two against Lawrence Okoli. We've just seen him do it against Anthony Joshua there. So I think that then moves us on to Anthony Joshua, and we've got to speak about Anthony Joshua. Listen, I do think that you box to the level that's in front of you sometimes. If you see me in the gym sparring with professionals, I look way better in those spars than I do sparring against amateurs that have had one fight or something like that, because they're not orthodox. They don't do things the way you're expecting them to. And also, we've got to mention the fact that despite there now being a probably plethora of highlight reel shots for Jake Paul to be able to clip up, he probably landed 15, 16 shots in total on Anthony Joshua, or about that. Despite there being loads of that he'll clip up and use and stuff like that, let's not rewrite history with this fight. This fight was Jake Paul coming and running. Now, there's a style of running, and if you're ever going to run, do the one that Jake Paul done just now, because he did still let off multiple big power shots. A couple of his shots he landed with double jabs, and it would only be the second land, but he did still let off multiple big power shots. He had a go. He had as much.
Following the clash with Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul revealed frightening complications from the fight. He confirmed he had jaw surgery and would be stuck on a strict diet for the coming week. Every one of his teeth was impacted, making solid food impossible. During recovery, he was restricted to liquids through a straw and soft meals like mashed potatoes. This update exposed just how brutally punishing the fight truly was and amplified fears about the dangers of facing an elite heavyweight. The revelation stunned many fans, underlining the real consequences of entering the ring with someone of Joshua's caliber and sparking debate over whether Jake's boxing future should now be reconsidered.
Health update from hospital bed after having jaw broken by Anthony Joshua. Teeth removed and 7 days eating through a straw. Wow. Folks, that's brutal. That's brutal. I mean, we're talking about not even soft food. I remember, guys, when I went to got into the Navy, they pulled all 4 of my wisdom teeth out at one time. I could not eat any solid food for like 3 days. I was basically eating like mashed potatoes and stuff like that, which sucks. But on that 3rd day, man, I couldn't take it. I had to get some meat. So I was using my front teeth to eat. I don't think Jake Paul could even do that. Look here. It says Jake Paul has delivered an update on his health after suffering a double broken jaw in his knockout defeat against Anthony Joshua. The American, who drove himself to the hospital after admitting he feared his jaw was fractured, survived 6 rounds with the former heavyweight champion before Joshua's power finally told in Miami. AJ knocked him down twice in the 5th round and then twice in the 6th to end the mismatch in the early hours of Saturday morning. Issuing an update to fans on social media, Paul revealed he will be forced to eat through a straw for a week and has some of his teeth removed. Wow. The things some people do for money, guys. The things some people will do. The former YouTuber posted a picture of himself in bed at the University of Miami.
Talk immediately exploded about Jake's proper weight class after the fight. Experts pointed out that heavyweight clearly isn't ideal after the obvious size and power gap he endured. The physical contrast was impossible to miss, and the injury risk looked alarmingly high. Many pushed the idea that dropping to cruiserweight could create a fairer setting. That division would let Jake test himself against fighters closer to his size, giving a safer space to build skills without the extreme danger tied to elite heavyweights. Fans and analysts together stressed how vital the right division is for career longevity. Credit the effort he gave. Now, everyone knows it's not.
Now, I know it's not easy to fight a guy that's running away from you, and Jake Paul made a ring bigger. It was 22 by 22 as
it's
opposed
huge
to
ring. When
20.
I was looking at it, I'm like, holy shit, this ring's massive.
I had said before the fight, I tweeted, I said it was like a soccer field that they were, fighting in, right?
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do that, but he just looked poor in there and like he didn't really care. And, you're being paid that much money, and people are, I looked at tickets today just to see on their ticket map how many tickets were left and what it was like. And there was tickets being sold for $3,500. And then this is the kind of performance, if you're AJ, that you give when you're being paid $35 million and people are paying that much money to get in. I thought that was, the whole show was awful. Netflix ought to be embarrassed for putting that on. But
Sam Jones delivered a brutally honest takedown of Jake's showing, rejecting the idea that simply lasting several rounds deserves applause. He called the fight painful to watch, not because of drama, but due to the glaring technical flaws on display. From Jones's viewpoint, the contest looked clumsy and completely one-sided as boxing. Jake's movement lacked sharpness, and he frequently seemed drowned by Joshua's size and skill. Jones said labeling the fight as brave or respectable distorts the truth of professional boxing. He stressed fans must acknowledge the courage shown while also admitting the serious weaknesses exposed from start to finish.
Knocking out and breaking Jake Paul's jaw. Just talk to me right now about the fight itself and then we'll break it down.
Bit of a crap fight, if we're all honest. It was like watching Jaws 2 when all the kids went out on their boats and they were in the middle of the sea and the shark was just surrounding the boat, just like that's what it was like. It was just like a shark circling its prey and just like it was like nibbling and eventually got him. But Jake Paul showed big plums in there, no matter what anybody says about him, because I've seen people say, yeah, he went in there to survive. Yeah, okay, he went in there to survive. He's a guy that's been boxing a couple of years against a unified champion of the world who can really punch. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best fight. It just wasn't the best thing to watch, was it? Like it was just, it weren't great. I just want to see now Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. I think at the stages of their careers they're at, AJ and Tyson Fury, we don't need to see interim fights, Andrew. We don't need to see interim fights because they're just potential banana skins. We want to see two of the best heavyweights of this era going at it. And
former champion Antonio Tarver, though, stepped in with a different take. While admitting Jake's defeat, Tarver applauded his toughness and durability. He pointed out that Paul survived all 6 rounds against a far more seasoned and physically superior opponent. Tarver emphasized Jake's knack for avoiding a swift knockout, forcing Anthony Joshua to keep working the entire fight. He praised the discipline and preparation required to make it through the full contest. Still, Tarver questioned whether Paul's strategy would work against elite fighters in truly competitive matchups, stressing that mere survival does not equal readiness for championship-level battles.
It's another big fight. Jake Paul stopped by Anthony Joshua tonight. What did you make of it?
I expected it. AJ looked like he was putting that pressure on, but credit to Jake Paul. He didn't make it easy, bro. He wasn't no sitting duck. He got on his footwork, used his ring, was moving a lot, and he landed some shots. So hats off to Jake Paul, but he was in there surviving, and he didn't make it easy for AJ, but AJ landed that right hand. I knew it was over after that.
Why did it take so long, do you think?
Oh, Jake Paul wasn't a sitting duck. He was putting his mind to the game, but just didn't have enough in his bag. It just, like I said, he got to get those lessons and evolve more as a fighter. You
want to see him continue?
Yeah, he's going to continue, of course. Just got to pick him right, bro, and give yourself a chance. You know what I mean? I think he was just biting off a little bit more than he could chew tonight. His aspirations was a little bit far out.
I think AJ could have got it done a bit quicker.
I mean, I think he was in there to do it, but like I say, Jake didn't make it easy, bro. It's hard to hit somebody when they moving, especially the way he was moving lateral, just, circling. So he had to catch up with him. He hit him with a couple body shots that slowed him down a little bit. But you can tell right from the outset, bro, it's a different.
Experts also broke down Jake's game plan inside the ring. He leaned heavily on being slippery, staying at range, and non-stop movement to avoid getting pinned in corners. That approach helped Jake stretch the fight out and show mental grit. But Tarver warned that this kind of defensive style hits a wall. Against truly elite opponents, relying only on escape without steady offense simply won't cut it. Analysts added that while Jake's surviving earned some credit, it failed to show the aggressive toolkit needed to chase titles, even down at the cruiserweight level.
What he's doing in the boxing ring.
Listen, so long as people will tune in and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a two-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age, to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to.
Boxing analyst Henry added more fuel by breaking down Jake's bizarre in-ring behavior. He noted that Paul repeatedly tried to grab Anthony Joshua's body and drag him down, a move that strays far from normal boxing rules. Henry stressed those tactics usually aren't allowed in pro fights and should have triggered referee warnings. To him, it screamed that Jake was scrambling for real offense against a much stronger rival. Analysts point to these moments as proof of the wide gap between Jake's current skill set and what's needed to truly compete against seasoned fighters. Based on these tactical flaws, experts doubled down on the importance of experience. Veteran boxers build sharp defensive and offensive instincts through years of training, helping them read punches, keep balance, and react fast to surprises. Jake, while impressive for his limited background, hasn't developed those instincts enough to hang with elite heavyweights. Observers noticed his reactions lagged at times, and his efforts to control the fight felt uneven throughout.
About what was coming back at him, he was kind of unaware of what kind of power Jake Paul had. He clearly didn't really want to get hurt or hit. And also, as soon as Joshua did get to the inside against Jake Paul would clinch instantly, and something that he did repeatedly throughout the fight, which was very frustrating to watch, that the referee didn't really punish or lock down on, was the fact that Jake Paul kept sliding down AJ's body, grabbing his legs and going down to the ground, basically. Now, it's a tactic that people use when they're tired and when they're worried about being in that clinch for too long, because they don't want to be smothered by the bigger man, held by the bigger man, have to go into a wrestling match. It's basically submitting and saying, I can't compete with you in that space. Also, this gives me a quick chance to catch my breath and do a bit more moving, which is something that he did constantly throughout this fight. It also revealed to us why it was only 8 rounds. We already had the feeling that perhaps Jake Paul would try and survive, which was why the fight was on the shorter side. To get through 8 rounds was a lot more thinkable than getting through 10 or 12. And there's no other reason for Anthony Joshua to ever agree to an 8-round fight. It was clearly something that Jake Paul's team wanted in the contract. And look, had this fight been 6 rounds, Jake Paul might have just about survived. He might have just about got through it. And he said himself after the fight, if I just had a little bit more cardio, I probably could have made it to the end. And it speaks to just how much damn moving he was doing. Now look, towards the end of the fight, the 5th and 6th rounds, AJ started to actually land power punches and knock Jake Paul down to actually hurt him. And in the end, he finished the fight with a trademark large, powerful right hand. Before I get into whether or not I think this was real, whether anyone was carried or anything like that, I have to say, fair play to Jake Paul in terms of his toughness. He actually does have quite a good chin because he was taking some big clean shots from.
That's it for today's video. Stay locked. Drama next time.